Well, you heard from John Anthony there on the news. No more texting and driving. No more holding a cell phone while driving in the state of Missouri. That law going into effect this morning. Woo! Very excited about that. So just so you know, as you get the morning started and you're getting in the car, and maybe you want to listen to us on the KCMO Talk Radio app rather than listening to us on the radio for whatever reason, you've got to pull us up before you get driving, before you get going in your vehicle. That's when you got to pull up the show. No more holding or supporting with any body part a cell phone while driving. Good morning, Mark.
Yes, you got to keep it in the cup holder or maybe get one of those cell phone holders, whatever you need to do.
Cell phone holder is good. Cup holder works as well. But in all seriousness, do not be texting and driving. You shouldn't have been doing that to begin with. I don't know what took Missouri so damn long. I know there's this idea of like, well, the government's not going to tell me what to do. No, if you're going to put me at risk and text and drive while you drive a 2,000-pound vehicle 80 miles an hour, no, that is the government's role. It took Missouri way too long to come around on this, but Missouri finally did come around on this. I'm glad that they did, and it starts today. Because in Missouri, by the way, 2012 to 2021, there were 200,000 crashes related to distracted driving and 801 fatalities as a result. That's according to MoDOT. So, Missouri, welcome to the 21st century. This law is long overdue. Drivers can no longer hold or support with any body part. Take that to mean whatever you want. A cell phone while driving. Good morning. Happy Monday. Welcome back. Great to have you here on KCMO Talk Radio. So we've got some new information here. Of course, Tony's Kansas City again leading the way on this. My goodness, this guy. Jeez. I know some will say he's just a blogger from his basement, but I would argue he does more journalisming than the Kansas City Star, and that's not a hard argument to make. So last week, a lot of time spent on this poll that came out around Clay County, suggesting that Clay Countyans, by a 70-30 margin, would reject a potential sales tax for a Royal Stadium in North Kansas City. Well, this comes out yesterday on Tuesday, Wednesday, when the Royals roll out their renderings for their new ballparks and the pretty photos and everything else. And everyone's like, whoa, where'd this thing come from? Who is these pollsters? What's this firm bold decision? Who are these guys? Well, Tony's Kansas City does some digging, along with another area outlet, the Heartlander, Michael Ryan helping run that operation. But what we find out, and Tony's Kansas City writes about this over the weekend, is that the company that did the polling, Bold Decision, had a bunch of other names in a previous life, and one of those names was tied to Brian Platt, the Kansas City city manager, during his time as Jersey City city manager in New Jersey. So this firm that was used to commission this poll in Clay County has deep ties and has been used by Kansas City city manager Brian Platt during his time as city manager in Jersey City, New Jersey. Fontes Advisors was the relationship that he had during his time as city manager back east. And it would seem to me, if somebody had a motive to keep the Kansas City Royals south of the river, and they saw the Royals slipping away and moving their way potentially up north, you would call up somebody who has commissioned polls for you before, and you would try to draw a desired outcome out of that pollster. Now, you may say they wouldn't. Yes, they absolutely would. That happens all the time in politics. You commission a poll, and before you actually run the poll, you let the pollster know what kind of a result you're looking for here. Hey, I need a poll that says fill in the blank. Make it happen. All right, we can do that. And folks in Kansas City, Missouri have a lot of incentive to try to keep the Royals in Jackson County. There are billions of dollars at stake here in this project, right? I mean, it's pretty obvious at this point. You got the Royals looking at the East Village downtown. You have them looking at North Kansas City. And if I were the folks south of the river in Jackson County in Kansas City, Missouri, I would be very concerned that the Royals are going up north. I've said that now for a few weeks. And if you're trying to dissuade them from going up north, you might think it's a good idea to have this poll commissioned that says, well, if you guys go up there, no one's going to vote for a sales tax, right? But it looks like it completely backfired on them because, as we told you last week, well, the Royals are ticked. The Royals are ticked off about how this went down yesterday on the day that they wanted to just be singing Kumbaya and flashing their pretty photos. Instead, this poll drops out of nowhere. And no one knows who paid for it. No one knows where it came from. All we know is that it suggested Clay County voters would not have any interest in passing a sales tax for a new Royals ballpark. Jeez, the timing is just awfully coincidental. And it gets leaked to the Kansas City Business Journal on the same day that the renderings come out. My, oh my, wow.
Talk about a bombshell.
What a coincidence. It's not a coincidence. It rarely is ever a coincidence. And now we know that this firm that was used to commission this poll has ties to the Kansas City, Missouri city manager from his days in Jersey City, New Jersey. So if nothing else, it's a massive red flag, is it not? It's quite a coincidence that these two parties know each other from a previous lifetime, and now here they are doing business together in some capacity in Kansas City.
I find all this drama exciting. It's like the mothers duking it out for the head cheerleaders with their daughters, right? There's stuff coming out. Are you kidding? Can we not see through? Hello?
You can't see what's going on here? It's pretty clear, right? People at City Hall are scared to death that they are going to lose the Royals. And instead of commissioning polls to suggest their desired outcome, they should do the things that need to be done south of the river to make sure the Royals never leave. But considering you've got more violent crime that took place over the weekend in parts of town that, by the way, should not be happening, parts of town that even just a few years ago you would have said to yourself, what? Wait, what's happening there? Are you kidding me? That's what they should be worried about. Like, I heard the Downtown Council, there's this organization called the Downtown Kansas City Council. They're also very afraid of Clay County in this case. How about the Downtown Council grows a backbone and starts standing up to City Hall and saying, your awful policies, the way you guys have attempted to directly and indirectly do things like defund the police, the way that you protected your county prosecutor in this whole process the last 2 years has resulted in more killings on the streets of Kansas City and has hurt the business climate as well downtown. How about the council grows a backbone instead of potentially trying to commission fake polls to keep the Royals in Kansas City, Missouri? There's a crazy idea, but I would highly suggest they consider going that route instead. 913-408-7710. Now, what happened exactly? Well, somehow this just started getting attention here over the weekend. It's from a few days ago, but what happened in River Market? I mean, River Market of all places, in broad daylight. What happened there is the kind of stuff that the city should really be focused on. And I love River Market. Used to live right around there. But this is the kind of stuff that you would never have ever imagined happening even 40 years ago. We'll get to that coming up next on KCMO. Well, it took Friday to get this reported in the Kansas City Star. Welcome in. Happy Monday. As you heard there from Greg Bennett, I hope you're enjoying these cool temperatures. I mean, goodness. A week ago, walking into the office, it was 82 degrees with 96% humidity. And now this morning, as we get it going at 6:20, oh my goodness, it's beautiful out there. It is, 59 degrees. Let's go. Woo! Oh my goodness gracious, it feels good. Really does. But don't look ahead. Don't look at the long-term forecast because the hot weather's coming back. Going to be 100 next week. So summer's not done with us yet. Sad to say. Oh gosh, just when you thought it was coming to an end. Not quite. So here we are, but enjoying a beautiful morning across Kansas City. So Friday, Kansas City Star had this story about a high-speed police pursuit ending with a BMW crashing into a KCK home. Now, that's the end result of the story, but I want to backtrack to the beginning part of this story. This story begins on August 22nd. That's right, 6 days ago. This didn't get really any attention, as I recall the news cycle last week, but 6 days ago, police were dispatched to 3rd and Grand. So that's right in the heart of River Market, right along, you got the streetcar up there and everything else, right? An armed carjacking just before 11 a.m., according to court documents. So this man, Van Callahan, police allege, walked behind an elderly man who authorities believe he did not know, and he shouted, "I'm going to kill you." Then Callahan beat the man over the head with a construction sign, stomped on his chest, and poured liquid on him, according to sworn testimony by an officer. Callahan kicked him in the back of the head twice, threw a plastic cup at his head. The man attempted to pull a firearm from his pocket. He pointed it at Callahan, but the 43-year-old grabbed it, redirected it towards the man. Callahan pulled the trigger only to find out the weapon was unloaded. An off-duty police sergeant flagged down by KCATA supervisor attempted to help the elderly man. Callahan then allegedly pointed the firearm at the arriving sergeant, pulled the trigger, no bullets fired. Sergeant ran for cover, leaving behind his BMW. Callahan then took the car, fled the scene. 2 guns were inside the personal vehicle at the time. So this guy eventually, later that afternoon, was found on the Kansas side of the state line with the stolen BMW. And he was with a woman in the car, and he's in federal custody after his arrest. He's got a detention hearing taking place tomorrow. But to think that now we have in broad daylight in River Market, armed carjackings taking place, right along the streetcar line, right along the high-end condos. I can't even fathom it. I mean, I think back just to, a few years ago when I was living down in that area. And heck, we had a little baby. Claire was a few months old. We were living down in that area. And we'd walk around, you'd, especially on the weekends, things were popping. You had a great time down there. You'd go out to eat. There was never a care in the world. Now, broad daylight, 11 a.m., armed carjackings are taking place in River Market. And the city of Kansas City, Missouri is thinking, gosh, we better drop a fake poll trying to harm North KC and Clay County right now because they might get the Royals. How about you figure out what is going to entice businesses, young professionals, and families to want to live in important parts of your community, and then the rest will take care of itself? This isn't all that difficult. But I'll tell you right now, if I was still living down there and I've got armed carjackings taking place at 11 a.m., if I'm living there, I'm saying, you know what, we're not going anymore. And then on top of that, the next thing I'm doing, 1A, trying to get the hell out, with all due respect. And I say that not out of joy, because we have outstanding memories living in that part of town and having the baby and pushing the stroller around and really enjoying our lives. So I'm not saying this as like a ha, the city's, going to hell in a handbasket. I don't want it to. I would love for young families and young people to have the same memories that we had just a few short years ago in that part of town. But story after story, you can find them, unfortunately, all the time. And, there was no homicide in this case, so it's not going to be tracked as a homicide or anything like that. But you sit there and you say to yourself, this is the kind of stuff that, why are you going to live there? Why are you going to invest there? Whether it's property, whether it's business, whether it's, your lifestyle. Why are you going to invest in that right now? And if the city was serious about making sure their city was as enticing as it could be to business, this is the kind of stuff they'd be more concerned about, not polling done in Clay County and trying to allegedly make polls in Clay County fit their preferred narrative to hold baseball teams hostage in Jackson County. That's what I wouldn't be doing. But that would just, make too much sense, wouldn't it? 913-408-7710. That is also the text line here on a Monday morning on KCMO Talk Radio. Now, I was looking at this over the weekend, just trying to get a feel for where we're at right now when it comes to homicides in Kansas City, Missouri. And we are at 129 year to date. This is updated. They don't update it over the weekend, so we should get the update for August 28th this morning. Right now, this is updated through Friday, August 25th. Now, we have dipped below the 2020 numbers. In 2020, through August 25th, there were 130 homicides in this town, which was, of course, the record-setting year for murders in Kansas City, Missouri. Right now, we've got 129 through August 25th year to date. That's January 1 through August 25th. So things have slowed down the last couple of weeks. Thank goodness for that. Very happy about it. But one thing I looked at that I hadn't looked at in quite some time, because they've got it here on the daily homicide analysis that KCPD puts out. They have here the means of attack, which I find interesting. That means, is it, firearm, shotgun, handgun, rifle, unknown? What is it? So means of attack out of 129 homicides in Kansas City, 78 of them are handguns. 1 shotgun, 6 rifles, 35 unknown, and then a couple of blunt force traumas. So all the talk about, the gun, the illegal weapon, we've got 78 handguns. And how many of them are legally owned by the people who use them? We don't know. But the notion that, gosh, we just got to get these ARs off the street and life will be good, that'll fix everything for us here in Kansas City or anywhere for that matter. Once again, the data is just simply not backing that up when you actually look at it. It's not backing it up. It never has, and it never will, by the way. 628. Hope your week is off to a great start. Thanks for being here on KCMO Talk Radio, 710 AM and 103.7 FM. Well, on the national front, Donald Trump, days after his mugshot, he had quite a statement on social media last night, and he wants Biden impeached, he says. Well, is that the right answer? We'll get to it coming up next. Well, happy Monday morning. The Trumpster had himself a busy night on Truth Social. My goodness. This coming after the now most famous mugshot in the history of mugshots was dropped on Thursday after he turned himself into Fulton County Jail down in Georgia. So clearly, it has been a good few days for Donald Trump. Now you might say, "What? A good few days? Yeah, oh yeah, it's been a good few days." I mean, I know people who hate Donald Trump, who over the last few days have said to me, "Pete, this is clearly political. I hate that it's political," and that's on the Democratic side. People I know, and then there are Republicans I know who also don't like Trump, who admit that he's handled this thing pretty well, right? With the mugshot, the way he's released it, the way he's taken advantage of it, the way he has gotten people into his corner using the mugshot. I mean, the way that he has used this to lead the polls by 30, 40 points. What it means for 2024, no idea. I don't think it's good to have the guy of one of the two major political parties going back and forth to court thanks to his political opponents who he's trying to beat in a presidential race. That's like third world type stuff, banana republic type stuff. But in the short term, over the last few days, it has been a very good few days for Donald Trump. There's no denying that. So last night on Truth Social, Trump goes on a rant about Joe Biden. He says here the Republicans in Congress, though well-meaning, keep talking about impeachment inquiry on crooked Joe Biden. By the way, he's taken the crooked from Hillary and applying it to Joe. So no more sleepy Joe. Now we got crooked Joe. Look, the other guy got bribed. He paid people off. He wouldn't give $1 billion to Ukraine unless they, quote, got rid of the prosecutor, Trump writes on Truth Social. He said Biden is a stone-cold crook, he writes here. Okay.
Such a cute soundbite.
You don't need a long inquiry to prove it. It's already proven. These lowlifes impeach me twice, parentheses, I won, and indicted me 4 times for nothing. Either impeach the bum or fade into oblivion, he writes here. They did it to us. That is Donald Trump on Truth Social last night. Well, Kevin McCarthy, the Speaker of the House, is the guy who would lead the way on any kind of an impeachment. Kevin McCarthy was on this show last week, and I asked him this very question. I don't know if they have it all quite yet in terms of being able to tie Joe Biden to basically taking money or using Hunter to run the family business to make money off of Joe's position as formerly vice president. I don't know if they've got that thing completely slammed shut, but they're pretty darn close to it. And there's a part of me that wonders whether or not Kevin McCarthy really wants to go ahead with an impeachment inquiry, or if he wants to talk about it and he wants to say all the nice things that Republicans want to hear but actually never do it. So, Kevin McCarthy, I'll play for you what he said on my show, but just remember this as well. McCarthy is Trump's guy. Ronna McDaniel, who runs the RNC, is Trump's guy. Trump supported both of them. A lot of us weren't sure if Kevin McCarthy was the right guy or not. A lot of us know for certain Ronna McDaniel's not the person to lead the RNC. Trump has supported both of those people. So these are his guys. He can't just start screaming rhino, coward, wimp, whatever, because these are his people. But anyway, Kevin McCarthy on this show last week, and if you missed the conversation, it's up on our podcast page. Here's what he had to say about impeaching Joe Biden. President, what do you feel like you need when it comes to evidence in the House on your side to move ahead with that?
Well, I would say anytime with impeachment, everybody, it just has to rise to the level what the Constitution says. I mean, the first thing everybody has to understand what they're listening, you wouldn't know anything about this had Republicans not investigated. And every week we learn something new. It just seems to me that there's two standards of justice here in America, one for the Bidens and one for everybody else. I mean, think about what we've now learned. When Joe Biden was vice president, his family went out and created 20 shell companies. Even while he was vice president, 16 of the 17 payments from Romania were paid. We now found out the president told us he had nothing to do with his son's business, but now we found with the business partners that that's true. He called into these meetings. We now found that he said he never showed up at any meetings. Well, no, he went to dinner, and after you go to dinner, the son got a new Porsche. $3.5 million was wired. We now have IRS agents that's come before us telling us that the family got treated differently. We've now found that the shell company's money has gone to 9 different family members. We're told one thing by Garland. We said we needed a special prosecutor for this back in February. He said they did not. He just now names Weiss, but Weiss was the individual.
All right, I've got more here from McCarthy, but he's not saying anything. I asked the question to him last week. What will it take for you to impeach Joe Biden? And he's laying out the case for why he should do it, but he's not saying he's going to do it. So let's continue with Speaker of the House Kevin McCarthy from last week right here on KCMO.
They screwed up this whole process to start out with, where the judge actually rejected what they were doing. We now find out that Biden's family said they were going to have to put the president on the stand to influence the Justice Department. Somebody in this process is lying, and that's what I'm walking through, making sure the American public has all the information. But if this ever rises to the level of impeachment, we will move forward with that. We uphold the Constitution, and we will continue. As I've said before, if this administration fights us and denies us the ability to get the information we need each and every week we move forward, we will move with an impeachment inquiry, which will give us the top-level ability of strength for the legal cases to get all the information we need.
In the last 30 seconds, do you have a timeline on that, or do you have to just follow the House's investigation?
Look, we continue to follow, and every week you learn something new with a new bank statement that you never knew you had. And they continue to fight us, but the one thing I want all your listeners to understand, we will never give up. We'll never give up for you, to secure your border, give you stronger and safer streets, give you a greater say in your kids' education, and just like this, holding government accountable. And with the Biden family corruption, we will get to the bottom of where it all lies.
Do you have any confidence after those comments from Kevin McCarthy last week on this show, and then Donald Trump last night going on a rant on Truth Social, basically saying to McCarthy indirectly, hey, get off your butt and impeach this guy, meaning Joe Biden? Do you, if I were to put odds on it, since we're upon football betting season, it was week 0 this past weekend, but nobody cares about week 0. If I were to put odds on the House of Representatives going ahead with any kind of an impeachment, what would you list to that? I'd say odds are they're not going to do it. I mean, it wouldn't be it'd be close, but I would say odds are they're not going to do it. I don't think that they are going to ultimately go through with it. If I were just a betting man, because by the time they maybe have what they need, they'll be in 2024. Who knows if Biden will even be the nominee by then? I still think that's a possibility that he bails on this whole thing, right? And if he is the nominee, they'll say, well, we got an election year to take care of it. And I would respect it if we weren't living in this world where the guy who also is the front runner for the other party is getting clearly politically targeted by his opponents. And you have a DOJ that, regardless of how you feel about the man, has been weaponized to try to take him out. That's the part that is just beyond frustrating if you just want a free, fair, level playing field in the justice system. And it's very clear that is not the case right now in this country, sad to say. 913-408-7710, 644 on a Monday morning. Welcome back. Welcome in. It's great to be with you. The good, the bad, and the ugly from the weekend is 1 hour away on KCMO Talk Radio. And coming up, we've got the numbers, the economic impact from the NFL draft here in Kansas City back in April. Are you buying it? I mean, I'm just wondering. It's a big number. Are you buying it? We'll share that number with you coming up on KCMO. You buying this? By the way, happy Monday. Kansas City Sports Commission and Visit KC says the economic impact from the NFL draft, $164 million over the 3 days of the NFL draft. Now, of course, you go back to April between Union Station, the National World War I Museum, and Memorial. It was a great sight. It was a great scene. Took the kids down there. We had an outstanding time, and we thoroughly enjoyed it. Now, the only money we spent, was on the parking garage. I'm trying to think, did we get anything souvenir-wise or food-wise? Certainly didn't buy a Bud Light. Might have bought a couple of waters, but not much else. Just took the kids around, had a great time. But coming after that, remember, the conversation we had the week after the NFL draft was what? Well, it looked like it was a lot of people from around Kansas City, but not nearly as many out-of-towners as a lot of us expected, right? We were told that we were going to be flooded by out-of-towners. But it seemed like it was mostly a sea of red. It was like, all right, Chiefs fans. Now, they weren't all from Kansas City, Missouri proper. They were coming from Lee Summit and Overland Park and Parkville and Liberty and everywhere else around the region. But it seemed like it was an event for Kansas Cityans, not really a big event for out-of-towners coming in. In fact, anecdotally speaking, it sounded like Taylor Swift brought in more out-of-towners than the NFL draft did.
And sold more sundresses at Crown Center, too.
Well, yeah.
Right?
Yes.
That was one unit of measurement.
Yes, that was. Now, of course, the reference there is the fact that you did have a handful of businesses in the area of Union Station complaining about their businesses not doing well during the NFL draft. But, of course, one of those businesses that was loud and proud about their lack of sales was a company that sold women's sundresses, which, it's not really what the NFL draft crowd is looking for that weekend.
Adding context to that, though, was the whole, we're going to get a lot of people here.
Yes.
I'm a local business owner. I better get a few more people in here today.
Mm-hmm.
So you had staffed up and crickets.
And nothing happened. Nothing came out of it. So now the number is $164 million in total economic impact, with over $108 million created in direct spending and $55 million in indirect impact. Now, what does that mean? What is $55 million in indirect impact? I saw the headlines over the weekend, and all the TV stations were running with this story. And of course, not many of them ask follow-up questions. They just take their talking points from Visit KC or whoever, and they, go rah, rah, rah. And I want to go rah, rah, too. I'm not looking for a reason to not go rah, rah. I'm happy to go rah, rah. I just want to know what $55 million in indirect impact means. Can somebody explain that to me? And by the way, Visit KC is the same people that tell you that 25 million people visited Kansas City in 2018, I think that number was. And they're the same people that tell you 1 million people ride the streetcar without any evidence to suggest that's the case. That's the same organization. So you want to talk about goosing the numbers a little bit. It wouldn't shock me if that's what's happening here when you talk about $55 million in indirect impact. I don't know how you quantify what the heck is indirect impact. I don't even know what that means. And I've read half a dozen stories on it here locally, and no one can define what indirect impact is. I mean, I want to believe it. I'm all about believing it. But I also want a little bit of evidence to suggest that those numbers are based in something beyond somebody's feelings.
Indirect impact is parking tickets.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
That's
incidental.
right.
It's like, what's that word? Trying to think. When things happen, even though you didn't plan for them, what's the word phrase I'm looking for? Anyway, unintended consequences.
I know. That's exactly right. Or that's money made off of bird scooters downtown.
There you go.
Over the NFL draft. Maybe that's what it's about. I don't know. All I know is I'm struggling to come to that number, $164 million in total economic impact. But, I'll take it. I'll run with it. NFL season's upon us, by the way. Chiefs had their final preseason game over the weekend. And I just have one question for Mark, who is fired up right now, getting ready for the season. We all are. But I texted Mark over the weekend, and I asked him a very simple question as I've been watching some of the Chiefs preseason football. Can the Chiefs keep this running back they got in the offseason, La'Mical Pirine, who was kind of off the scrap heap? Hadn't had much of an NFL career, but still a young guy. I remember him from playing college at Florida. Then the other guy is, of course, a guy they've invested a lot of time in, Justin Ross, a wide receiver, 6'4", big dude, who was projected early in his college career at Clemson to be a first-round NFL draft pick. But then injuries derailed his career. So he goes undrafted, and the Chiefs have invested now a year and a half in the guy, trying to get him back and, fulfill his potential. And he caught a touchdown over the weekend. I mean, a big-bodied dude, all the talent in the world. And Mark told me that he believes the Chiefs can keep both La'Mical Pirine and Justin Ross.
That's right. I think Justin Ross is my favorite under-the-radar player for the Chiefs.
Ah, okay. I love the guy.
I think he could get in there. I think he can be a red zone threat, just like we saw in the preseason with Mahomes throwing to him. It'll be even better.
So you think they can and will keep both guys? I
do. I don't think they're going to have a fullback this year, so I think they'll have double running backs or tight end back there maybe.
Okay. 53-man roster cut's going to be coming up, this week, I guess?
Yeah, I think tomorrow, possibly.
Oh, okay.
Tuesday,
yep, tomorrow.
Tomorrow's the day. All right. Well, I'm excited about that. And I just think they got to keep both those guys on the roster. Take all the weapons you got there, throw them at Mahomes, and let him run off and have a great season. Eli's in Overland Park as we approach 7 o'clock. What's up, Eli? Good morning. You've got an answer for me on indirect impact?
Hey, man, the only way they get to those numbers is if they're counting all the rookie contracts as part of the revenue.
Oh, that's well done. All the money being made by the NFL players. That's indirect. Oh, gosh, that's good.
And all the people that are going to visit Kansas City after seeing how cool it is on TV. That's future impact, I guess.
Yeah, but how do you quantify that?
We don't know.
I mean, that is such a made-up number, but I'm sure you're right about that, Mark, that travel bureaus like to put out there. Well, we got 800 million social media impressions for Kansas City. So obviously that's going to lead to $50 million in economic impact over the next 10 years. Based on what? But either way, I'll take it. It was great to have it here. I enjoyed it. Oh, man, this was a bust of an announcement. Good morning. Happy Monday. Welcome in on KCMO Talk Radio. So you might have seen some of the TV stations over the weekend pumping up Garth Brooks coming to town. He's got a big announcement this week. Oh, my goodness. This is going to be huge. It's coming up on Tuesday. Oh, my. What's it going to be? Well, I'll give credit to the Star. They're the ones who had it. Garth Brooks is set to announce a new project on Tuesday, tomorrow, at Kauffman Stadium with TuneIn Radio. Wow, yeah.
I thought he was going to buy Kauffman Stadium and really mess up all the plans.
Nobody cares.
Well, I suppose that would have been a much better announcement than this.
Well, would he play at T-Mobile Center now? Then Sprint Center 9 nights, something like that?
Yes, 9 sold-out shows in 2007.
Might as well buy the K and have a place to play.
Yeah. He could do a residency,
Yeah, there you go.
That sounds good. Like Billy Joel's been doing at Madison Square Garden for 10 years now, something like that. That'd be fine. Put it to use. I'm not sure the Chiefs would like that. They want to knock that place down. But I think that'd be pretty cool. So, this is the big announcement. Garth Brooks is going to be joined tomorrow at Kauffman Stadium with members of area sports teams to announce that he is putting together a TuneIn Radio project where he's going to have Garth Brooks' 7 radio network. I don't even know what that's supposed to mean. But the news release said that 7's radio will launch multiple stations on TuneIn Radio this year, dedicated to country music and more, all curated and conceived by Garth Brooks. Garth Brooks really, he's very fond of Garth Brooks. I've noticed that. Garth is very fond of himself. And that's okay. You get to a level of success, and that becomes understandable to a point. But why this is something that is being announced in Kansas City and why it's happening at Kauffman Stadium and why local media was hyping this up like it's something everybody's going to be on pins and needles about, I do not quite understand. I think it's cool. I'm glad he's coming here to do it. But I'm not like, whoa, man, what an opportunity. Oh, and it's happening at the K. This is fantastic. I don't feel that way about it, John.
Imagine the indirect economic impact. Right?
Oh, gosh. So, of course, Garth most recently was here in 2021 for his Super Spreader concert event. Remember that? Back in the summer of 21, he was getting crap from
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
The Kansas City Star was giving him crap. And so, he's having a Super Spreader at Arrowhead. Summer of 21. And what I'll never forget about that concert is that there were people there, like on the Lee Summit School Board, who were still advocating for mask wearing in schools as they were hanging out with 80,000 of their closest friends at the Garth Brooks concert, sweating on each other, like a couple of weeks before school was set to begin. That's what I will never forget about that concert. Now, to Garth's credit, he played the show. He stood up to the goons who were pushing for, you got to cancel this show. You're going to have a Super Spreader event. It was outdoors a year and a half or more after the pandemic had started, and we knew a lot about it by that point, for crying out loud. But this will be his first time back, and he will be announcing a TuneIn Radio project. Wah, wah, who cares? But, man, the way that local media was hyping this thing up before we actually found out what it was like, what's he going to do? Is he going to be announcing the Royals' new location? Yeah, John Sherman, the billionaire owner, is going to let Garth Brooks steal his thunder on announcing the future ballpark site. I mean, it might not be a bad idea to get some goodwill behind the stadium, but the billionaire owner is not going to let his thunder be stolen by Garth Brooks on that, John.
You're not going to hear the thunder roll, right?
No. I see what you did there.
Okay.
That's not going to happen. No way, no how. But yeah, ho-hum announcement tomorrow at Kauffman Stadium. I'm not going to sit here and wait for that one with bated breath. Sorry, it's not going to happen. Well, that's right. They're coming for your booze. Kid you not. All right, here's the story. Good morning, 9:04 on a Monday. Welcome in. Enjoy the cool temps this morning across Kansas City. So whenever you think the government's too bloated, just remember it's even more bloated than you realize. So Joe Biden has an alcohol czar. Yeah, his name is George Koob. Isn't that the perfect name for a bureaucrat who shouldn't be employed? George Koob. George Koob is the director of the National Institute on Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism. And he told the Daily Mail here over the weekend that the U.S. may follow Canada's footsteps on alcohol guidelines. Currently, American guidelines recommend men limit themselves to 2 alcoholic drinks per day, while women should only have 1 drink. Well, the American recommendations are up for review in 2025. And Canada's guidelines recommend only having 2 drinks per week. Koob, who said he partakes in a couple of glasses of buttery California Chardonnay. Oh, my gosh. Buttery. Oh, my goodness. Who is this guy? I'll butter you up there, Koob. Said he was watching the Canadian big experiment with interest. He says if there's health benefits, I think people will start to reevaluate where we're at. Well, here's where the government continues to prove it's worthless. Let's be honest. There's no health benefit to alcohol. There isn't. I mean, I enjoy it. You enjoy it. I had a fire pit with the girls last night. I had a beer. I was sitting out there on a Sunday night at 6 p.m., 7 p.m., doing a fire pit with a 4 and a 2-year-old. Really enjoyed it. Capped off the weekend. I won't say what it was, but don't worry, it wasn't a Bud Light. But it was good. But at no point was I drinking that beer and thinking, well, if I just have one of these a week, there's a real health benefit for me on this. There isn't. There wasn't, and there won't be going forward.
In Canada, that's 2 beers per period on hockey night there, hey? On Thursdays.
I don't know. I don't know how they adjust those rules for hockey night.
I know.
You're right.
How can you have a hockey game and only 2 beers that day?
That is so true. Unless we're talking about, the 2 24-ouncers, if we allow that to be called one beer. Well, it's in one can, yeah. So that's one beer, right? But I'm fine with, as much as I'm goofing on the Biden administration, I'm fine with them doing that, but it doesn't mean anyone's going to listen, right? Do you know anybody who's like, well, if the NIAAA, the National Institute on Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism, says that, it used to be okay to have 2 drinks a day if you're a man, 1 drink a day if you're a woman. Now they're saying 2 a week. So, guys, I'm out for happy hour this week. Sorry. I'm not going to be able to make it. The NIAAA is no longer suggesting I have 2 drinks a day. So I'm going to have to skip out this week. Do you know any single person who's going to change their habits based on what this bureaucracy tells you to do? Hell no. No, you don't. It's not a no. No one's going to do that. Right? So these guys can make whatever recommendations they want, but it will do nothing to the way Americans consume alcohol. Now, Americans should, by and large, consume less of it probably. But here's the other part that I don't understand. The other part I don't understand is all drinks are not equal, right? I mean, a Tank 7 from Boulevard is not the same as a Coors Light. A Tank 7 has like 3 times the amount of booze in it as a Coors Light does.
A Moosehead ain't a Molson's up there.
John loves bringing in the Canadian analogies.
Bats, man.
Yes, you're right about that. So wine is not the same as a light beer. So I'm still trying to figure out when you say 2 drinks per day, which is what the government recommends, what 1 drink means. Because not all drinks are created equal. And by the way, there's no worse time than during the Biden administration living through this then reduce the amount of alcohol we're consuming, okay? That's another thing that we got to look at loud and clear.
Touche.
Now is not the time to be reducing my booze intake in this climate with this guy leading the way.
Come on, man.
I'm sorry. Now, maybe by 2025, there's somebody else in charge, then I might be able to abide by these new regulations of 2 drinks per week instead of 2 drinks per day. But at the very least, through January of 2025, you're not going to get me anywhere close to that. Sorry. Sorry, not sorry. Now, speaking of booze, Mark put this up on the KCMO Talk Radio Facebook page over the weekend. Mark has a friend who bought the Bud Light cans, bought the Chiefs Bud Light cans. You know, the Chiefs are trying to, or the Bud Light, I should say, is trying to get back in the good graces of its core consumer. And because they have the NFL contract, they can put team logos on beer cans, which nobody else can do. So NFL season is here. So Bud Light is rolling out its Chiefs logo beer cans. And Mark put up pictures on the KCMO Talk Radio Facebook page because he's got some wokester friends, I guess. Is that a fair way to put it, Mark?
What's funny is this guy's not even really wokester. He doesn't really like either. He's kind of like Oliver Anthony.
Okay.
If I call back to earlier in the show, he's kind of like down the middle. But he wants to get all the Chiefs memorabilia that he can, essentially.
So, like, he's got these beer cans, and you know, they look pretty cool. I will admit that. I'm not going to buy them. I'm going to stand strong. They look pretty cool. But what is he going to do? Like, after he drinks them, he's going to clean them out with water and soap and then put it somewhere?
I have no idea. I was going to actually ask him about this. I need to do a follow-up tomorrow maybe on this. I'll ask him what he did with the cans because, yeah, once you open it, you just throw them in the recycling. Maybe you keep one can and don't drink it and set it up. I'm not sure what it's gonna do.
But even that's kind of weird. Like, I have the cans that you get at games, you know? When you get a can at a game and it's like, it's not just like your typical 12-ounce can. It kind of is one of those 16-ouncer bottle-shaped cans. Those are kind of cool. But this is just a regular old 12-ounce beer can that's got a big Chiefs logo on the top. And then on the back side, it has LVII, 57 Super Bowl champions with the Chiefs logo. It's a cool can. But the comments on Facebook were not kind to Mark's poor friend here.
That's all right.
Yeah.
More comment. Come on. Bring it on. We can get more than that. Let's go.
Well, you can go to the KCMO Facebook page and see him there, John.
You're just collecting crap your kids will have to throw away, said the 60-year-old to the two 30-year-olds.
Yeah.
My mom, God bless her, said, I'm trying to clean this up so you and your brother don't have to deal with it.
Yeah.
But I've seen people get stuck with stuff. So, yeah, you're just collecting stuff people have to throw away.
Yeah, well, that may be true. Now, a lot of you on the KCMO Talk Radio Facebook page are blaming the Chiefs for this. This is not the Chiefs' fault.
No.
This is an NFL sponsorship with Bud Light that's been in place for years. Some of you are insinuating on the Facebook page that this is Bud Light trying to fix their mistakes. No. They've had the NFL contract for years. So with all due respect, some of you don't really know what you're talking about here. I mean that in the most polite way possible.
So if you were super into it, you'd try to get one of every team, trade with your buddies, all that stuff.
Yes, if you had friends in 30 different NFL cities, you could try to get one for each team. That is true. And also to this person on our Facebook page, Jay wrote on Facebook, there is a 1% chance this is not a sponsored post. That was not a sponsored post on the KCMO Talk Radio Facebook page. It was a legitimate photo that Mark got sent by his buddy who bought the Bud Light Chiefs cans. And since nobody on the show is contractually allowed to do it because I will fire them, this is the only way you will see what these cans look like.
That's why I found it interesting, because no way I'd see it otherwise.
Yeah, thank you very much. 913-408-7710. And now that the Biden administration is saying you can only have 2 drinks a week, well, by golly, you better, if you're going to go down that road, just dump the Bud Light out if you really want to have the can, I guess. But just don't tell us about it here on KCMO because you'll never hear the end of it. 913-408-7710. Our caller of the day at the bottom of the hour was part of our best conversation that we've had this morning. But coming up next, we haven't touched on this yet, but you know that Clay County poll that was released last week? Well, we've got some information on how the question was asked and how a question gets asked, specifically when it comes to a sports team looking to build a new stadium somewhere. How the question gets asked can tell a big part of the story. And we found out how that question was asked, and that is part of the reason the answer came out the way it did. We'll tell you about that next. Well, courtesy of the Heartlander here in town, online publication, Michael Ryan, formerly of the Kansas City Star, does a lot of work there and does a good job once he got out of the disaster of a former employer he was at. Had a story here over the weekend about the Clay County poll that got a lot of attention last week as the Royals dropped their renderings for the North KC ballpark and the East Village ballpark. And this random poll gets dropped and leaked by the Kansas City Business Journal that says 70% of Clay County residents would not be interested in a sales tax for the Royals if they were to pick the North KC Clay County site. Well, the question many of us had was, what was the question, right? How was the question asked? In this poll that was done to 300 registered voters in Clay County. A lot of issues with the poll, as has been noted in the last few days, and we noted this morning. The poll was reportedly commissioned. Well, it was commissioned by a company that has done business in the past with Kansas City City Manager Brian Platt, dating back to his time when he was the city manager in Jersey City, New Jersey. Now, it's not a slam dunk that he had anything to do with this poll, but it sure is interesting that the company that did the poll has ties to Kansas City Commissioner Brian Platt dating back to his days in Jersey City, New Jersey. That's interesting. It's an awful coincidence if it's just that. But then the question also becomes, well, how was the poll asked? Because oftentimes a poll can get desired results if you ask the question properly. And I use properly in air quotes. So Teresa Lohr, the former Kansas City, Missouri councilwoman out of the Northland, notes that the question asked as follows: would you support or oppose a new sales tax in Clay County to help fund construction of a new multi-billion-dollar stadium and mixed-use development? But what is left out of that question? What's left out of that question is, well, where the stadium would be. The question is careful to say that, yes, the tax would be in Clay County, but does not say that the stadium would be in Clay County. And you might say, well, Pete, isn't that obvious? Oh, well, no, not really. It's not obvious at all. I know a lot of you that are tuned into this show and followed the news here in Kansas City, you're like, well, everyone knows they're looking at a North KC site. I'm telling you, man, people don't know as much as you think they know. I'm sad to say. I wish that was different. But people do not know nearly as much as we want to think or would hope that they would know. So some people may be like, no, I'm not paying for a new stadium downtown. Screw that. They could pay for it in Jackson or Kansas City, Missouri. So it's important that they left that out of the question, which once again may lead to their desired result. And then they leak that result on the same day the Royals announced their renderings for the North KC site and the East Village site. Conveniently dropping this poll to the Kansas City Business Journal, leaking it to them, and then having it overtake the conversation for the day in large part, which from what I heard pissed off John Sherman to no end. And I don't blame him one bit. And the other thing in this poll, there was no option for undecided. No poll from the people I've talked to who do this stuff for a living. No poll is legitimate if undecided is not an option. If you're forcing people into a question that is not fully framed about getting more taxes on them, of course they're going to say no, especially when undecided is not even available. That sounds like a poll that's trying to get a desired outcome, and that's exactly what I believe folks south of the river got out of this, John.
So basically what we found out is 70% of Clay County residents are opposed to a new tax.
Yes, that's all we got out of this poll. Wow, shocker, right? Mm-hmm. Can you believe that?
Yeah.
Talk about a bombshell.
That's all we got out of this one. 70% of Clay County residents don't want a new tax. Well, no kidding. Most people don't, in their right mind, want a new sales tax right now, especially because sales taxes are regressive taxes. They impact everybody, and they're more likely to hurt the working poor than they are anybody else. So it's not a surprise by any stretch that this was not popular in the way this poll was framed. Now, I still think it's going to be an uphill battle for the Royals in some way, regardless of which site they pick, because it's been a bad year for taxes in this region. I mean, we know about the property tax debacle in Jackson County. It hasn't been a whole lot better in other parts of the region. Property taxes, or I should say assessments, are going up, and property taxes are also increasing around the region, and people are feeling the squeeze of inflation, of the cost of living, of their property taxes. So are they going to be really walking over hot coals to help the Royals get a $2 billion complex between the stadium and the ballpark village? I find that hard to believe. So the Royals are going to have a hell of a sell on their hands to get this thing done. And I'm not convinced they're going to do it right now or going to have a lot of success doing it. But what may help them is that it's not expected, regardless of what site they pick. And the timeline for the Royals is the end of September for them to announce where they ultimately want to be, North KC or the East Village. But the timeline for them getting something on the ballot is next April. So their hope has to be that the economy continues to just kind of stay where it's at. Not great by any stretch, but it hasn't fallen off the map. It's kind of just in this weird malaise of no one knows what is next. No one knows what is coming. And election year is around the corner. Their best hope is that things stay as is. And then they also have a winning September, and then they maybe have a good spring training, and then Patrick Mahomes comes out and says, let's get the Royals a new ballpark. And everyone's like, woo! All right, this is great. Get the Royals a new ballpark. Woo! Yeah. He could be, by the way, the ace up the sleeve, more so than John Sherman. Remember, Patrick Mahomes is a part owner of the team. So, if he comes out and says as a part owner of the team, I'd love to see the Royals get a new ballpark. All right, rah-rah, Kansas City. As the guy who owns the KC Current with his wife, the women's soccer team, he's going to be like, yeah, let's get a new ballpark. I mean, whatever it costs John Sherman to get Patrick Mahomes in the mix, that would be his best bet by a mile to get him involved. 913-408-7710. If you have not done it yet, maybe you're a late riser as we approach 9:30, get your butt outside. Enjoy the damn weather. It is beautiful out there this morning.
You pushing for a Whataburger in the new ballpark village?
Oh,
maybe?
yes.
Boom.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, gosh. Kate was asking about Whataburger. We still haven't gone as a family yet. I got to get her over there for a hot date night to Whataburger. No kids, honey. We're going to Whataburger.
Yeah, look out now.
Oh, no. The kids will love it, too. But I haven't had time. It's been busy around here.